Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm not just telling you a story, I'm inviting you on a journey. A journey that could completely shift the way you look at life, money, and what true success really means. What I'm about to share with you is more than just a book summary. It's a life-changing lesson, one that has transformed millions of people, including me. We're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the most powerful books ever written about achieving financial freedom. You'll not only discover how money actually works, but you'll also improve your English naturally through powerful storytelling and clear, everyday language. Picture this. You're a young kid growing up, watching how the adults around you live their lives. One person tells you, work hard in school, get a secure job, and save your money. Another says, learn how money actually works. Don't chase it. Make it work for you. Build wealth, not just wages. Two totally different mindsets. Now, the question is, which one would you believe? This was the exact situation Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, faced in his childhood. He had two father figures in his life. Two men, both smart in their own ways, but with completely opposite beliefs about money. He called them Poor Dad and Rich Dad. Poor Dad was his real father, a well-educated man, a schoolteacher, and someone who truly believed that success comes from studying hard, getting good grades, and climbing the career ladder step by step. But here's the twist. Despite his degrees and steady job, Poor Dad always struggled financially. He worried about bills, lived from paycheck to paycheck, and thought that talking about money was almost rude. On the other side, there was Rich Dad, not his real father, but a mentor. A man who didn't have a fancy degree or a government job, but who understood something far more powerful, how money works. He ran businesses, invested wisely, and believed that financial education was more important than school education. Rich Dad used to say, "Don't work for money. Make money work for you." Now just imagine being in Robert's shoes, a young boy hearing advice from both these men. Both meant well, both cared, but their advice couldn't be more different. Poor Dad said, "Find a stable job." Rich Dad said, "Build something of your own." Poor Dad believed, money is the root of all evil. Rich Dad would smile and say, "No, the lack of money is the real problem." At first, Robert was torn. He respected both. But then, something became clear. Poor Dad, despite being educated, was always stressed about money. Rich Dad, even without academic success, seemed calm and confident about his financial future. One day, Robert asked Rich Dad, "Why do you always seem so relaxed about money?" And Rich Dad answered with a quiet smile, "Because I understand how it works." Most people spend their lives working hard for money, but they never learn how to make money work for them. And just like that, something clicked in Robert's mind. That one sentence planted a seed of curiosity and a hunger to learn more. He made a decision right then, to study Rich Dad's mindset, to learn his financial lessons, and to follow in his footsteps. Now pause for a moment. Think about this. Isn't this the same for so many of us? We grow up being told, go to school, get a job, and save for retirement. But how many of us were ever taught how to manage money, how to grow it, how to stop living paycheck to paycheck? And this brings us to the most important point Rich Dad ever taught. Your mindset about money shapes your future. If you see money as something negative, something scary or evil, you'll always find it hard to manage. But if you start seeing money as a tool, something you can learn to control and grow, then you open the doors to freedom, confidence, and opportunity. Think about it for a second. If you stood at a crossroads, with two paths in front of you, one leading to endless financial stress, and the other toward freedom and peace of mind. Wouldn't you want to know which one to take? That's exactly what Rich Dad was showing Robert, the way out of the trap most people fall into. With every talk, Rich Dad opened Robert's eyes a little more. And then, one day, he said something Robert would never forget. The rich don't work for money. Robert looked confused. What do you mean? He asked. Isn't money the whole reason people go to work? Rich Dad smiled and replied, that's the difference. The poor and middle class work for money. But the rich, they make money work for them. Then he explained something that felt like a light bulb moment. He said most people are stuck in a loop, a cycle he called the rat race. Here's how it works. You go to school and you're told to study hard so you can get a good job. Once you get that job, you work hard to earn money. Then what do? You buy things. A car, a house, a nice phone. But those things come with bills, loans, EMIs, taxes, and repairs. So now, you have to work even harder to keep paying for everything. And the moment you feel you're catching up, new bills appear. It just keeps going. Rich Dad paused and said something powerful. People think they're working for financial safety. But really, they're working for their boss, the government, and the bank. The more they work, the deeper they fall into this cycle. He called it a trap, and once you're in, it's hard to get out. To help Robert understand better, Rich Dad gave him a simple example. Imagine a man named John, he said. John earns $3,000 a month. Then he gets a raise and starts making $4,000. Sounds great, right? But what does John do next? He upgrades his lifestyle, buys a bigger house, a better car, maybe the latest phone. His expenses rise just as fast as his income. Instead of saving or investing, John keeps spending. Now he has to work harder every month just to keep up. And so, the rat race continues. More income, more spending. No freedom, no peace. Robert was quiet. Suddenly, it all made sense. This is exactly what his poor dad was doing. Working harder, earning more, but still stressed, still stuck. Then Rich Dad asked Robert, do you know what financial freedom really means? Robert shook his head. Rich Dad explained, financial freedom means your income from investments or assets is enough to pay your monthly expenses. At that point, you're no longer working for money. Money is working for you. He leaned forward and added, people think being rich is about having a big salary. But even someone who earns a lot can be broke if they spend even more. That day, Robert learned something that most people go their whole lives without understanding. True wealth doesn't come from earning a big paycheck. It comes from owning assets that generate income, even while you sleep. Rich Dad sat him down and shared one of the most eye-opening lessons of his life. A simple idea, but powerful enough to change everything. Understand the difference between assets and liabilities. He said, an asset puts money into your pocket, even when you're not working. A liability takes money out of your pocket, whether you work or not. Then he gave 2 real-life examples to make it crystal clear. Case 1. Buying a car. A young man saves up $10,000 and buys a shiny new car. At first, it feels like success. But the car needs fuel, regular maintenance, insurance, and as time passes, it loses value. It doesn't earn him anything, but keeps costing him money. This is a liability. It looks good, but it quietly drains his wallet. Case 2. Investing in property. Another man also saves $10,000. But instead of spending it, he buys a small piece of land. He rents it out and starts earning $200 every month. The land increases in value over the years, and the monthly income keeps coming in. whether he works or not. This is an asset. Something that pays him, not the other way around. Robert was stunned. Suddenly, it made so much sense. He realized how often people confuse liabilities for assets. A car, a fancy house, expensive clothes. They look like signs of wealth. But in reality, they don't bring in money. They take it away. Rich Dad leaned in and said something Robert would never forget. The rich buy assets first. They invest in things that grow their money, like businesses, real estate, stocks, and even learning new skills. He explained that these investments generate passive income, money that comes in without having to trade time for it. Once they build enough assets, the rich can afford to enjoy luxuries without stressing about bills. But the order matters. They buy income-generating assets first, and luxuries later. To make the idea even clearer, Rich Dad gave another example. He said, imagine two families. Both earn $5,000 a month. Family A spends their entire income on rent, groceries, entertainment, and by the end of the month, their bank balance is back to zero. Family B lives on $4,000 and invests the extra $1,000 in stocks. Slowly, those investments grow. Eventually, they start earning $500 a month just from dividends, without lifting a finger. Over time, that passive income increases, until one day, it's enough to cover all their monthly expenses. That's when Family B becomes financially free. Not because they earned more, but because they learned how to grow what they earned. Over time, Family B stepped out of the rat race. Their assets paid for their lifestyle. Meanwhile, Family A, still stuck, working paycheck to paycheck, trying to stay afloat. Robert was finally starting to see the bigger picture. It wasn't about how much money you earn. It's about what you do with that money. Managing it wisely is what makes all the difference. Rich Dad explained, most people say, I can't afford it. But the rich ask, how can I afford it? This tiny shift in thinking changes everything. When you say, I can't afford it, your brain shuts down. It gives up. But when you ask, how can I afford it? Your mind starts working like a problem solver. It becomes creative, curious, and hungry for solutions. To help Robert build this new mindset, Rich Dad gave him a challenge. Next time you want something and feel like you can't afford it, he said, write down 3 possible ways to make it happen. Could you cut back on something unnecessary? Could you start a small side hustle on weekends? Could you learn a new skill that helps you earn more? This simple exercise was powerful. It trained Robert's brain to think like the rich, to focus on possibilities, not limitations. Still, Robert had doubts. He asked, but what if I lose money? What if my investment fails? Rich Dad smiled. That, he said, is the difference between the rich and the poor. Poor people are so afraid of losing money that they avoid risk altogether. The rich know that failure is a part of learning. When you make a mistake, Rich Dad said, don't quit. Learn. Try again, but smarter. Then Rich Dad shared a simple step-by-step plan, something anyone could follow to start building wealth, even with very little money. Step 1. Track your spending. Write down every single expense for a whole month. Then go back and circle the ones that weren't necessary. This will show you exactly where your money is leaking. Step 2. Start small. You don't need thousands to begin. Start with tiny investments, a few shares of stock, or a savings account that earns interest. Step 3. Keep learning. Read books. Listen to podcasts. Join seminars. Find mentors. The more you understand money, the more confidence you'll build. Step 4. Focus on assets first. Before you think about buying a new phone or taking a fancy vacation, invest in things that bring money in, like rental property or a side business. Step 5. Reinvest your profits. When you earn money from your investments, don't rush to spend it. Instead, reinvest it, so your money keeps growing and working harder for you. As Robert followed this plan, something inside him began to shift. He no longer saw money as something meant to be spent quickly. He started seeing it as a tool, a way to build more money, more freedom, more options. Bit by bit, Robert's mindset began to change, from fear to confidence, from scarcity to abundance. As time passed, Rich Dad's lessons were beginning to reshape Robert's life, step by step. Every talk, every example, was helping him see the world and money through a completely new lens. One day, Rich Dad surprised him with a different kind of lesson. He said, "If you want to become truly wealthy, the first thing you need to master is your emotions." Robert blinked. Wait, emotions? What do they have to do with money? Rich Dad gave a knowing smile and replied, "Everything." He explained that fear and greed are the two emotions that quietly control most people's financial decisions. And because of that, they stay stuck, living paycheck to paycheck, always chasing, never catching. Fear, he said, is what keeps people stuck in jobs they hate. They're scared they won't be able to pay the bills. So instead of building something of their own, they settle for a paycheck, for comfort, for less than they're capable of. Imagine this. Someone has a dream of starting their own business, but they never take the first step. Why? They're afraid of failing, afraid of losing money, afraid of what others might say if they don't succeed. So instead of trying, they stay where it's safe, a job that helps them survive, but never allows them to thrive. Rich Dad gently added, the rich feel fear too, but they don't let it stop them. They feel the fear and take action anyway. That's what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. Fear is human, but action is what changes lives. Then Rich Dad talked about another dangerous emotion, greed. He said, greed convinces people that buying more things will make them feel better. A new car to feel successful. A bigger house to impress others. Expensive gadgets to feel important. But the truth? These things don't bring happiness. They bring bigger bills, more stress, more financial pressure. Rich Dad paused and said something powerful. Real happiness doesn't come from owning things. It comes from freedom. Freedom to spend your time how you want, with the people you love. And that kind of freedom? It doesn't come from shopping. It comes from building assets, income-generating tools that give you choices and peace of mind. He told Robert, if you want to control your emotions, you need knowledge. Most people are afraid of money, not because money is scary, but because they don't understand it. They don't know how to invest, so they avoid it. They don't understand taxes, so they overpay. They don't know how to build wealth, so they stay stuck, working harder, but not getting ahead. To help Robert grow even further, Rich Dad gave him one clear message. If you want to control money, start learning how it really works. He encouraged Robert to dive into 3 key areas. 1. Investments. Understand the basics of stocks, real estate, and other ways to grow your money over time. Know where to put your money so it doesn't just sit there, it grows. 2. Taxes. Learn how the rich legally reduce their taxes using smart strategies. It's not about cheating the system, it's about knowing the system. 3. The market. Understand how markets move. Learn when it's the right time to buy, when to wait, and when to sell. Rich Dad's point was simple. The more you know, the less you fear. Knowledge gives you power over panic. But one of the most life-changing lessons he shared with Robert had nothing to do with numbers. It was about mindset. He said, "Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like an investor." Here's what he meant. Let's say you earn $1,000. A consumer will go out and spend it on clothes, new gadgets, or entertainment. It feels good at the moment, but the money disappears. An investor, on the other hand, will stop and ask, "How can I use this $1,000 to create more money?" Maybe they'll buy a few stocks, invest in a short course to gain new skills, or start a small online business. Whatever the path, their money doesn't vanish, it grows. That mindset shift changes everything. Rich Dad also taught Robert how to spot opportunities, things most people completely miss. Most people, he said, don't see chances to grow because they're too busy working or spending. The rich, however, train their eyes to look for opportunities, even in ordinary places. He gave Robert a simple but powerful exercise. When you walk down a street, don't just look at shops as a customer. Ask yourself, how could I own one of these? What makes this business succeed? In short, train your brain to think like an owner, not just a buyer. Robert took that advice seriously, and once he did, something changed. The world around him seemed different. He began spotting hidden possibilities everywhere. A tiny cafe for sale, an old house that could be fixed and rented, even a website idea that could turn into a full business. Opportunities weren't rare. He had just never looked for them before. But as Robert started applying Rich Dad's teachings, he also ran into doubt, not from himself, but from others. People said things like, "You're too young to invest. That's way too risky. Just stick with a safe job." Even his own poor dad warned him not to waste time chasing crazy dreams. He meant well, but his advice came from a place of fear. Rich Dad smiled and said, "People will always criticize what they don't understand. But remember, they're speaking from their fears, not yours." He added, "If you listen to them, you'll live like them, stuck in the rat race." Rich Dad saw Robert's determination growing and encouraged him to stay focused. He said, "Surround yourself with people who believe in growth and success, people who lift you up, not pull you back." Robert listened closely. Rich Dad continued, "You don't have to start big. In fact, it's the small wins that build real confidence." He shared the story of a young woman who dreamed of investing but only had $50. Most people would wait until they had more. But not her. She started small, buying shares in tiny companies, one at a time. Her investments slowly grew, and as they did, so did her confidence. Over time, she began to take bigger steps and smarter risks. Rich Dad smiled and said, "That's how success works. Step by step, each small win gives you the courage to aim higher." He also reminded Robert that wealth isn't built overnight, it's built on daily habits. Your habits, he said, shape your future. If you make a habit of saving and investing, even small amounts every month, that money will grow. But if you spend everything the moment you earn it, you'll stay exactly where you are. He gave Robert a simple two-step habit to follow. Step 1. Pay yourself first. Before paying bills or spending anything, set aside a part of your income for savings or investments. Even a small amount, done consistently, makes a huge difference. Step 2. Track your progress. Keep a journal. Write down your income, your investments, your small wins. Seeing how far you've come will keep you motivated to keep going. But then Rich Dad warned Robert about one of the biggest traps that ruined people's financial dreams: impatience. He said, "Most people quit too early. They want fast results. They expect to become rich overnight. But building wealth doesn't work like that. It's like planting a seed, he explained. You don't see the fruit the next day. You have to water it, protect it from pests, give it sunlight, and wait. Only then, over time, does it grow into a strong tree that feeds you for years. Wealth is just like that. It takes time, discipline, and patience. Rich Dad looked at Robert and said something he would never forget: money is just a tool. It's not the goal. The real goal? Freedom. The freedom to live life on your own terms, to follow your passion, to spend time with the people you love, to help others. That's what being truly rich means. Robert left that day feeling more inspired than ever before. He made a promise to himself. He would break free from the rat race. He would build assets. He would create the life he once only dreamed of. And then, after many lessons and many steps forward, Rich Dad looked at him and said with a smile, "Now, you're ready for the most important truth about becoming wealthy." Rich Dad looked Robert in the eye and said something simple, yet unforgettable. Success isn't about luck or talent. It's about your mindset, your discipline, and the actions you take. Robert leaned in, hanging on every word. Rich Dad continued, "Lots of people dream of becoming rich, but very few ever do anything about it. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, the perfect amount of money." Then he smiled and said, "But here's the truth. There is no perfect time. The best time to start is now." To make it clear, he gave Robert an example. "Imagine two friends," he said. "One says, 'I'll start saving and investing when I start making more money.' The other starts right away, even with just $10 a week. Fast forward 10 years. The second friend has built a small fortune, not because he was rich, but because he started. The first friend? Still waiting for the right time." Rich Dad paused. "Opportunities are all around us," he said, "but only the people who take action will see the results. Don't wait until you feel ready. Use what you have. Start now." Then he shared another powerful truth. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a part of it. He told Robert the story of a businessman who had failed 5 times. He started company after company, and each one collapsed. People laughed at him, called him a fool, but he didn't give up. On his 6th try, he launched a company that not only succeeded, it transformed his life. Rich Dad asked, "Do you think he would have made it if he had quit after his first failure?" Robert shook his head. The answer was clear. Then Rich Dad turned to one of the most important qualities of all: self-discipline. "It's easy to spend money," he said, "but it takes real discipline to save it, and even more to invest it." He repeated one of his golden rules: always pay yourself first. Even if you have bills, even if you have debt, put a small portion of your income into savings or investments before you spend anything else. Why? Because this habit forces you to be creative and resourceful with what's left. And slowly, it builds the financial discipline that separates the rich from the rest. But Rich Dad also knew that the biggest enemy of success isn't failure, it's doubt. He told Robert, "Most people don't follow their dreams because they're too busy listening to their fears. Your thoughts create your reality. If you focus on what might go wrong, you'll find reasons to quit. But if you focus on what's possible, on your dreams, you'll start seeing ways to make them real." And as their lessons came to a close, as their journey came to an end, Rich Dad shared one last, unexpected lesson, one that surprised Robert the most. He said, "The richest people in the world are often the ones who give the most." Robert raised an eyebrow. "Give? How does giving make you richer?" Rich Dad smiled and replied, Because when you help others, you create value, and value always comes back to you. He explained that giving doesn't just mean donating money. It can mean sharing your knowledge, mentoring someone, or supporting a cause you care about. When you give, he said, you grow, not just in wealth, but in meaning, relationships, and purpose. He told Robert a story about a successful businessman who started a scholarship fund for students who couldn't afford school. That one act changed hundreds of lives, and in return, brought the man deep joy, respect, and unexpected opportunities. New partnerships, new friendships, even new businesses. Giving back, Rich Dad said, isn't a loss. It's an investment in the kind of world you want to live in. Then, Rich Dad offered one final piece of advice, short but unforgettable. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Years later, as Robert looked back on everything he had learned, he realized something profound. Rich Dad hadn't just taught him how to make money. He had taught him how to build a life. A life filled with freedom, confidence, and the power to help others. And now, Robert had a message of his own, one he wanted to share with anyone who might be starting out, just like he once did. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you're starting with zero. What matters is your mindset and your willingness to take action. True wealth isn't just about money. It's about building a life where you can follow your passion, lift others up, and live without regrets. So as you finish this story, remember this: your journey to financial freedom begins today. You've made it to the end, and that already puts you ahead of most people. Because you didn't just watch a video, you invested in your mindset. You took the first step. Remember, success doesn't start with money. It starts with the way you think, the actions you take, and the courage to keep going, even when it's slow. And as you build your future, don't forget to build your English too. Because the more confident you are with your words, the more powerful you become in the world. Start small. Stay consistent. Learn from your failures. Dream big. And whatever you do, never give up. Because the only thing that can limit your success is the limit you place on yourself. The world is full of opportunities. They're out there, right now, waiting for someone bold enough to take the first step. Your time is now. Make it count.